In the last video, you saw me place these support and resistance areas based on the most recent data. I placed the areas pretty quickly without explaining much about why I was placing an area in a certain spot, other than there being a bounce there. But why did I place them there? For example, why is this area, the 0.9830, placed right here, as opposed to a little bit higher, like here at the wicks? Why are these areas placed where they are, essentially? Well, there is a system that I use to place support and resistance areas, and I call it BCW. That means body, congestion, and wick. That is the order of hierarchy that I use to identify bounces for support and resistance. So what does this mean? Well, body refers to body bounce, and it's the most important pattern to look for when you're placing support and resistance areas. So this here is a body bounce. You can see the center of the resistance area is placed at the candle's body. Congestion refers to price forming in a tight range on top of a support resistance area. Congestion is not as important as a body bounce, but it's still important, and it still indicates support and resistance. And this is what congestion looks like. You can see price is stuck in a very tight range. Congestion can be anywhere between 3 candles to a lot of candles. And finally, wick refers to wick bounce. Wick bounces are formed when a wick hits an area and then rushes back up or down. A wick bounce can look like this. The support and resistance area is placed at the wick and not at the body. Now that you know BCW, I will show you how I used it to place these areas. I placed this area at the 9630 level because of this body bounce here. It also lined up nicely with this wick bounce here, which is extra confirmation of support. And if you look over here, we can see congestion here too, which is again, extra confirmation of support. See how price formed in this tight range around this area? This will be easier to see on the 12-hour. Okay, this is a 12-hour chart, and now you can see how price got stuck in this area. That is congestion, and that is a strong sign of support and resistance. So this area has a body bounce, a wick bounce, and congestion. Also, take note of how the congestion was created after this candle broke through. Price broke through from above. Then price turned and it pushed back up. Then it got stuck, creating congestion. So this congestion is treating this area as resistance because price started below and then came back up to the area. While the wick and the body bounce over here, they are treating this area as support because price was above and came down to this area. So remember, when something is above and comes down, it's support, and when it's below it and it goes up to it, it's a resistance area. So the congestion is treating this as a resistance area, and the wick bounce and the body bounce are treating it as a support area. This is normal though. Every area you place is both support and resistance. Bounces from above or below count equally. And when one of these areas is broken, it's not removed. It just switches from support to resistance or vice versa. So if you have a support area and it's broken, it becomes a resistance area. If you have a resistance area and it's broken, it becomes a support area. And another important thing about this specific example here, just in case you're wondering, there is no bonus for having all 3 patterns of support resistance. So the body bounce, the congestion, and the wick bounce, this one has all 3. That doesn't make it special. It doesn't make it extra strong. It just makes it a support area with a lot of confirmation. Let's go back to the daily. Okay, so let's talk about wick bounces versus body bounces. While body bounces are technically more important for me, it doesn't mean that I do not look for wick bounces. For example, the 1.0090 area was placed at this wick bounce. Yes, there was a body bounce here a few months earlier that you can see here, which adds extra confirmation, but the wick bounce is what caught my eye originally. So when I say that body bounces are more important, what do I mean exactly and why? Well, at this 0.9820 level, you can see that I have placed the area at the body bounce. I could have chosen to place this area higher at the wick bounce, but why didn't I? Well, if it comes to a choice between a body bounce and a wick bounce for placing a support resistance area, I favor the body bounce. So that's what I mean when I say BCW. You look for 3 patterns to identify support and resistance, and in order of importance, those patterns are the body bounce, congestion, and wick bounce. Why are body bounces more favorable though? Reversals don't tend to happen from the extreme spikes caused by wicks. They happen where price stalls, where price sits for a while, and that's where the bodies and the congestion is. And I feel that having support and resistance areas at points where price is actually going to reverse is more important than having your support resistance areas at these extreme points, which are caused by the candle's wicks. Another important thing to know about support and resistance areas is how much damage they can take. Or in other words, how many times can price cut through an area of support resistance before you remove the area? Well, let's look at this one here. The 0.9710 area to answer this question. Okay, so price has just recently broken straight through this area as if it doesn't exist. Does this invalidate the area? It doesn't. Support and resistance is not going to hold price back 100% of the time. Sometimes price cuts through support resistance areas. With this area, price has cut through it a few times already. But we also see some minor wick bounces from it here, so it's still somewhat active as an area of support. I'm not too quick to remove support resistance areas from my chart. This area has some good history, and I'm going to leave it on my chart until it's broken a few more times before removing it. I want to see it broken 8 to 10 times, and then I'll remove it. One exception to that rule is adjusting support resistance areas. Let's say price bounces just below this area once or twice. Then I adjust the area, and that entails simply pulling it down a little bit. This goes back to something you already know about support resistance areas. Recent data is more important. So if the recent bounces are higher or lower than the support resistance area, you can adjust that area. You could pull it up or down to match the most recent bounces. So adjusting support and resistance areas is fine, but outright removing areas after only a few breaks is not good. Now let's do one more thing with support resistance on this chart. We're going to place a new one. Look at this wick to the bottom here. It's below this 0.9540 area, and it spikes down a long way. At this 0.9540 area, we have a wick bounce, a body bounce, and another body bounce. But this last body bounce here has a huge lower wick. In this case, this single candle can account for 2 bounces, 2 areas of support resistance. It can be used as both a body bounce and a wick bounce. The wick is so far down, it's further than the distance between most of these support resistance areas that I've already placed. So let's go ahead and place a support resistance area here too. Now you might be thinking, are you sure you want to do that? You're placing a support and resistance area on a single wick bounce. And wick bounces are the weakest of the 3 patterns you look for to place support and resistance areas. There's no extra confirmation, so why are you placing this support resistance area here? Well, we'll talk about that in the next video.